Welcome to this Wood Solutions presentation on the structure of building regulations in Australia. Australia has a mature system of building regulations. It is extensive and it's well enforced. In practice, legislation and regulations control most aspects of building, particularly during design and construction. This includes many aspects of building with timber. State and territory governments have responsibility for building control, land planning and consumer protection. They establish both direct and indirect requirements on buildings, their design and the materials used in them. State building laws establish the direct regulated requirements for building design and performance. These include relevant laws, regulations and standards that you have to comply with. State law also defines the building approval process. This process is the means of demonstrating that the building design complies with the relevant requirements. State governments can also establish building requirements indirectly. They do this firstly through land use, environmental, occupational health and safety and similar laws. These can all influence the building design and the materials used in the building. The second way is through consumer protection laws. These establish fit-for-purpose requirements for materials used in both new and existing buildings. Lastly, local government areas can also establish planning and other ordinances. These can also influence what can be built and how it is built. All states use the National Construction Code, or NCC, as their primary building regulation. The NCC includes the 2 volumes of the Building Code of Australia, or the BCA as it's known, and the National Plumbing Code. There are several major things to note about the NCC. First, it is a uniform national code with only minor state variations, so it applies in every state. Next, it only sets minimum requirements. Design can provide more than the NCC requires, and the market may actually require better performance than the NCC requires. Lastly, the NCC is a performance-based code. It sets the performance to be achieved and not necessarily how it is to be achieved. However, it does detail construction that is deemed to satisfy the code. A design that follows this construction is deemed to satisfy the code's performance requirements. So it's a bit like a cookbook of solutions. The NCC documents do not include all the detail of building requirements. They can also include the information contained in standards by referencing them. For example, the Residential Timber Framed Construction Standard, AS 1684, is referenced in the NCC, and it is deemed to satisfy the NCC's requirements. So by complying with the standard, you comply with the code. Standards that are referenced in regulation then have the same legal force as the regulation. Also, standards that are called up in these reference standards also have the same legal force as the original regulation. Reference standards may cover a number of things. They can cover the requirements of a design process. They may include acceptable forms of construction, or they may detail the performance, grading and marking of products used in construction. For example, AS 1684 sets out acceptable ways of making and joining wall frames. It provides the spans and sizes of timber elements to be used in parts of the building, and it also includes means to calculate the bracing requirements for the house. The design of all new and significantly renovated building has to go through a building approval process. Depending on the state, either local government or private certifiers administer the bulk of building approvals. Government departments administer other approvals, such as compliance with particular environmental laws. Before construction begins, a building design needs separate planning and building approvals. Planning approval covers issues set out in the local planning scheme. Building approval includes assessment of the design for full regulatory compliance. The design has to comply with the deemed to satisfy requirements set out in the NCC and the reference standards, or it has to show that the actual performance of the building will match the performance requirements set out in the NCC. This second method is called providing an alternative solution, and the solution needs professional endorsement that the building will perform satisfactorily to the NCC requirements. Private certifiers assess the submitted documents, and when they are happy with their contents, they then certify the design. Then they, or the local council, approve the building application. In summary, Australia has a mature system of building regulation. The major building regulations are included in the National Construction Code, or the NCC, and the standards that it references. The NCC applies in every state. Additional secondary building regulations apply in each state, and planning and other ordinances apply in each local government area. Wood solution guides cover many areas required for satisfactory NCC performance with timber. For example, this guide covers external building envelope and deck design to AS 3959, construction of buildings in bushfire-prone areas. You can download this guide from the Wood Solutions website.